The election of Kamala Harris in the United States as vice president-elect, when she takes office in January, she will be the first woman elected vice president of America. And more importantly, she is the first woman of Black and Indian heritage to have been elected as vice president of the USA. What lessons can we here in Scotland and the UK draw from the American elections? To discuss this, I'm joined by a fantastic panel of women in Scotland. We're first joined by Chigozejo Adikwe, new Buddhist officer, network officer for Engage Renfrewshire, and also a member of the Scottish Trade Union Committee for Black Workers Committee. Yeah, thank you very much, Gozie. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, George. And yourself?
Excellent, absolutely fantastic to see you. And next up, we've got Miss Mokami Macrom, who is a retired civil servant for Scottish Government Equality Unit. Mokami, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, George. How are you?
Great, fantastic to have you. I know you're joining us all the way from Nairobi, so it's wonderful to be getting some sunshine over there. Yeah.
Yes, it tastes really good.
Absolutely, thank you. And we're also joined by Amanda Baker, author, poet, and current affairs commentator. How are you today, Amanda?
Oh, tremendous. All the better for the results that we're going to be talking about. Really good. Yeah.
Absolutely, thank you. Always good to see you. And joining us as well is Mary Ose Opong, who is author for the author of the book For the Love of Teaching, which will be launched on Saturday, the 21st of November. So we look forward to talking to you about that. Ladies, first of all, your reaction on the election of Kamala Harris. Let me start with you, Chigozie.
Yes. What can I say? Waking up on Monday was a very positive way to start the week. Being able to say, to my daughter, who's mixed race, and my son as well, that we don't have to be talking needlessly about Trump and some of Donald Trump's trivialities, but we now have the flip side of the coin, which was a really significant shift for the American population to put their trust in the Democrats again, but importantly in a Black woman, for the purposes of being able to show to my daughter that we don't have to speak about Trump on a daily basis. And I'm quite adept in terms of some of the policy changes and positive policy changes that he has brought into place, but I'm also hugely aware of the division that he's created in the 4 years that he has been as the US president. I think the fact that we have the first vice president woman of an ethnic minority background, and I have to say, I do the term woman, man, person of color kind of grates on me a little bit because we're all people of color. The important thing is that she is visibly an ethnic minority within America. And I don't think that there's been so much in any year politically or socially that I have seen that has galvanized people behind the cause around race and race equality. So for me, the election result is almost a testimony, and I'm really, really, really thankful and grateful. I have family in the US, I have done for several years, and I've been seeing all their posts on WhatsApp, and they've been encouraging people to go and vote. They've been encouraging their friends and family to go and vote. And I'm really heartened to see that we have taken a step change. Now, that just means that's happened in America, and I don't know whether what's happened in America can be transferable into the UK. I think the UK is quite well. Every country is very unique. I mean, in the UK, we have 4 countries in the UK, and the Black people of Scotland feel differently to the Black people of Birmingham and London and Leicester, etc., etc. But I think there's a unifying message that says, well, we've got to a point where people, because of lockdown, have been forced, to actually just spend a little bit of time reflecting about our communities, about our social interactions, about social cohesion, etc. And I think that that's linked itself to what's happened in the US, and it would be beneficial to think that those kind of thought processes are existing within the UK as well. But who can tell? I mean, ultimately, it's nice to wake up on a Monday morning and not see a whole range of Twitter feeds from Donald Trump, which just don't make any real coherent sense, and they're not cohesive. I think between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we've got at least, an opportunity to transition away from what we've been exposed to in terms of the political landscape in the UK, and to think a little bit differently about our own local context as well.
Wonderful. Reactions, Mary Ose Opon, thank you so much for coming on. So let's hear your reaction on the election of Kamala Harris.
Yes, hello, George. For me to add to what Gozi has said so far, it's quite positive for everybody, Black and ethnic minority people all over the world, to believe that our dream can become true. For our young people to believe that they can achieve the impossible. I think that it has set precedent for every country to pay attention to. I know that it will take a long time for other countries maybe to do the same, but for me, when I watched her on that day, Monday night, talking, I felt at ease, and I felt happy, because seeing somebody that, as she said, it took a generation for her to get to where she is, not like 4 generations for her to get to where she is. So for me, I think that it's a very positive message for everybody, everywhere in this world to pay attention to. I think I will end here.
Okay, that's fine, Mary. So we'll get your reaction, Amanda.
Well, just very quickly, following on from what Mary said, she used the word precedent, and ironically, Kamala Harris is a lawyer. Precedent is an absolutely perfect word to use. Let's hope it is a precedent, because my goodness me, we need some of that in this country. And I know your question is very specifically about Scotland. But throughout the whole of the UK, I think one of the things that really significantly highlights is just how the UK is failing to promote Black and Asian minority ethnic people, or to use the American term, and I understand Gozi's problems with this, but we're talking about an American election, so I'm going to use the American term, people of colour. And we do not have anything like it here. And I know we're going to develop all of this as we, all get to have our say, but I think it's absolutely important to give huge credit where credit is due, because of the way the American political system works, and they have a presidential system. We have to give massive credit to Joe Biden. He did not have to pick a woman. He did not have to pick a person of color, to use the American term, and he did at a time when America is going through some of the most horrendous racial conflict, white supremacy, encouraged openly and blatantly by the outgoing president. And also, let's not forget, it isn't just Kamala Harris, fantastic and wonderful and joyful as that is. Stacey Abrams, also a lawyer, a political activist. It was down to her genius, African-American woman, flipping Georgia and driving much of the political change. And the new scientific advisory board that Joe Biden has set up and prepared, if you look at that profile, people of color, women, Black women, I mean, it's really quite stunning. And as somebody who was frankly aghast that somebody as toxic as Trump could be elected in the first place, and let's not forget, we knew who this man was, we knew what he was when he got elected. I had begun to feel, as a lot of people had, that despite babies in cages, despite the wall, despite the Muslim ban, despite praising white supremacists, and on and on and on, that actually this guy might be going in for a second term. I mean, I really began to feel that. So, as has been said, you know, there's a feeling of happiness now, but actually, as we drew to the weekend last weekend and it became obvious that the Biden-Harris ticket had won, I did go from relief to a very personal sense of happiness. This is massive. And I go back to what Mary said. Let's hope this creates a precedent. Here in Scotland, our own left of centre party had the opportunity when Kezia Dugdale went to elect a person of colour, Anna Sawar, I think his name was, and they didn't. They rejected him. They chose another white guy, a grey Corbyn shadow. And that was a missed opportunity. Our leftist centre party in the UK has never had a woman leader, and that's shame on them. Let's hope this is a precedent, and let's hope it makes countries like the UK take a really, really good hard look at just how behind we are.
Absolutely. Mokami, we come to hear your reaction on the election of
Yes.
Kamala Harris.
Okay. Thank you. There is feedback. I'm not sure whether we should.
There is feedback, yeah.
I'm trying to find out, is it from anyone has a speaker on? Let me see. I'm just trying. Right. Okay. I'll just mute. Right. Carry on, Mokami. That's fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Can you hear? Yes.
Yeah.
I think, as you know, I am here in Nairobi, and therefore I watched the election from a different lens, in the sense that the commentary and the media coverage will be quite different from Scotland.
That's right.
And I also, when you asked me to come on the show, I chose to ask a few women what they thought about it, you know, back in Scotland. And clearly there are two issues. One of them, everybody I know, perhaps because of our politics, we're very happy to wake up in the morning and find Trump is not in the house. So the Democrat Party being elected was a huge sigh of relief for us. But we can also not ignore the fact that Trump had such a big following, so there's still a lot of work and there's still a lot of issues we need to look at. In terms of Kamala, everybody is excited about it. A few people have said that as far as they're concerned, they were neutral, they want to wait and see. For my position, my take is on that any woman, and I'm going to struggle with terminology here because I see this again as identity politics in a way that everyone now is claiming her the same way we claim Obama and putting on such a heavy weight on ethnicity and how beautiful she is and her color rather than her competence, her intelligence, her ability. And I'm not saying it's the significance of a vice president being of Jamaican, African, and Indian origin cannot be ignored because it's going to have a huge impact. But looking at it in a context of how she got there, we must recognize it's not just about having somebody of a certain shade of color in a position. It's what she has achieved and what she's going to achieve. And the way she has inspired young people in particular is symbolism. Is actually saying this is the biggest office and it's possible for other people, for young people to aspire to that. At the same time, we must recognize I'm on a continent and there have been many African women presidents and leaders who also, which I tend to look at politics in a global sense. The status of women has to be understood in all contexts. Otherwise, we end up just marginalizing because we are in Scotland. It doesn't matter that we have had presidents in Africa before and women holding office. So it's building all those together and seeing how women need to be recognized, not just because of our color, but because of our ability. And the danger we have in many areas when we look at that is ignoring, it's as people are surprised that we have a vice president who is a woman. There's also the issue of how we ourselves in global sense, we look at America. I've noticed just how much people have looked at. Let me say United States. The influence United States has on our day-to-day lives, and yet we are the majority in the rest of the world. There's a majority, whether in the economy, whether it's a number of women who have been in parliaments or in key positions, and I just wondering how we can shift that. In a way that we make all women, young women, older women, middle-aged women, aspiring to high offices feel it's not just America. It's not, I know we're talking about Scotland, but if we keep on thinking that there's something special about the US and we in Scotland are not perhaps worthy or not good enough for that kind of office, we're going to keep our children, our young women back. And I think to me, it is important we look at the leadership, the qualities, the competence, the integrity that you have. And, you know, many people still complain about Obama because we had they put on so much expectations. Kamala is going into a system which is perhaps not geared for her. She's she'll be most of the time fighting against all sorts of issues, including racism and discrimination and all sorts of problems she'll experience simply because people see her, the color first of all, before they see her competence, or they see her gender before they see her competence. Can't hear you.
Right. Sorry, fantastic. Can everyone hear me now? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that. This is what happens when you're manipulating the machines yourself. Thank you for all the reactions there. Wonderful reactions. So I'm gonna before I go to the next question, I want to kind of specifically come to the question, the main question here, which is what lesson can we here in Scotland I know everyone has kind of talked on it a bit in their reaction to the election. But I want you to kind of hear, what do you think, it's particularly women can do in Scotland and the UK, or broaden that to the UK. Just some of the milestones that America managed to achieve. I'll start with you, Amanda. I think we should start with you. Can you? Sorry.
You're on mute.
Yeah, you've muted my mic. Am I
You're
on
on now.
Okay. It's quite a complex one, because the way you frame the question, what can the women do, what can Black women do, it has to be a societal issue and a societal thing. We talked about this in our last discussion, about marginalizing, and you have a group over here, and often when a problem occurs, we say, okay, well, it's a matter of race, or it's a matter of women, so we'll put it over there to that committee. This has to come front and center. And I think that is one of the reasons why this is so significant. I hear what Ms. McCarthy says about, we have to look at what is happening in other continents, etc. But the fact remains that culturally, politically, militarily, economically, and on and on and on and on and on, America is preeminent at the moment. Even China, with its bulk of population and all of its economic power, is not central to the kind of collective consciousness the way that America is. And that is why this is so incredibly significant. I mean, and as for, how I think Kamala is going to do, don't forget, she's been a prosecutor, she's been a senator, she's been around American politics a long time. I think she is going to be fine. And the whole setup there, I think, if they can get in, because don't forget, the other guy hasn't agreed to vacate yet. But if they can get in, I don't think that's going to be a problem. But in terms of what that means, I think it is hugely significant, and there is no way to underplay that. And that's why when the election results became a reality, you saw not just people celebrating in the streets in America, you saw that in the UK, you saw it in London, you saw it in Canada, you saw it in India. And that's because it is globally significant. And to really sort of try and get back to your point, George, I think we need to understand now just how much catching up the UK has to do when it comes to race. Do you remember that the last time we spoke, we were talking a lot about, the horrendous kind of physical violence against Black people in America, but we also had a lot of discussion about the more insidious, what I call the Amy racism, the woman in the park who tried to call the police on that guy, bringing down kind of 400 years of racism on his head because she did not want to be told what to do by a Black man. And she was a kind of, middle class, white, liberal woman. And I think in the UK, we suffer much more from that. We have a lot of people in a lot of situations who know the right thing to say. They know the tune to sing, but when push comes to shove, they don't employ the Black woman. They don't give the promotion to the Black woman. And I would include, we were talking before about Gozie's involvement with unionization. The unions have a role to play here. Politicians have a role, teachers have a role, unions have a role. It's not down to Black women. Good Lord, we spend so much time, and we have the women issue, we have the Black issue. It has to be everybody's issue, and it has to be challenged, and we have to look around and we have to say, you know, why do we still not, in this day and age, have proper representation of Black, Asian and minority ethnic people, and specifically within that, women in our major institutions, in our political institutions, in our educational institutions. And actually, I think what has just happened in America, and, you know, I'm sure a lot of people in this country look at America and think, you know, their problems with racism are vastly outweigh ours. Well, you know what? Show me our equivalent of what they've just achieved, and I'll accept that argument.
Thank you. I think I'll come to Mokami and Ngozi. Both of you rose in your careers. You know, you rose to really top level in Scotland. So it would be really good to hear, you know, the challenges and the barriers that you face as Black women. So I'll come to you, Mokami. You that you worked with the Scottish Government on Equality Unit.
Yes, I started my life as my professional life as a teacher here in Kenya, and in Scotland. My life changed completely. But what, to me, first of all, if I answer the question about Kamala and Scotland, is what I'm hoping is that people will be able to see that non-white women are capable of holding high offices. Because I can't believe the number of times we used to be surprised that I was a CEO. Mm-hmm. They would always kind of, if they came to the office and they found out I was the CEO, not the cleaner or the tea maker, they would really sorry. Some people apologize and said they were sorry for assumptions, but that is because it's not because of Mokami in particular, because their perception of an African woman was either a cleaner and working in a home care or a nurse, but never a CEO. And that is something that perhaps this when people see more and more women holding high offices, they'll begin to start looking at us differently. When I said, I was not actually implying that Kamala can't cope. She is quite a competent woman, and she's gone through the system. She knows it very well. But what I was saying is that we must also build in ourselves and the young people the ability to achieve in our context, because I would be really sad if 5 years on, people saying, oh, she didn't do anything for women because we invested all our future in her. And I'm sure she'll do good, but we have a duty and responsibility, all of us, to change things in our context. In Scotland, in the Scottish context, we need to look at how women minority ethnic women are excluded from those high offices. And it's, to me, it's very important. We used to say that in the 80s and 90s. We don't want tokens. We don't want just somebody put there. I don't want to be a black number in somebody's wardrobe. I want to hold the offices because I've had the opportunities to excel and reach that position. And that is, to me, is what we need to be aiming for. I also want this to translate to a position where people start seeing African, Asian, Indian women parliamentarians as capable people, as people who have brains and beauty together and competence. Because at the moment, in many places, it's almost like a concession. They are not like proper politicians. They are not proper leaders. And those kind of things become a problem. This is a historic moment. There's no doubt about that. And because it's the first time it happened. But we do need to do much more to make people in Scotland. And also, don't forget, we go through with, there has been a lot of energy since Black Lives Matter, Black History Month. There's so much energy in the country and among ourselves. But we have been there before. there was so much energy when Stephen Lawrence's recommendations came into play, but slowly things settled back to their normal status. What we want to avoid is that normal status of discrimination, exclusion, and as usual.
Right. Thank you so much, Mokami, for that. That's a wonderful contributions there. Gozie, I'll come over to you. You know, in terms of your experience, you know, at on the subject that we're discussing, you know, perhaps there are so much your own lessons that you can or experience that you can share with us on the challenges and barriers that you know we can learn from.
Well, do you know, I mean, it is a historic development that's happened in the States. And I think, personally, it's as great a development for women as it is for Black, Asian, minority, ethnic women, people of colour. I think there's a dual success there. And for me, it means that, I can speak to my daughter who's mixed race. Her dad's from Plymouth, and I can speak to her now about current affairs and about what's happening in the States, and like, wow, this is a seismic shift compared to what the last 4 years of her life has been. When Makami was speaking, when Auntie Makami was speaking, I was very conscious of like just a quote that we use a lot in the trade union movement, which is, you can't be what you can't see. So if you've not got role models, if you've not got people that, you can see have taken that journey, that path, then it's difficult to visualize yourself on that path. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's like everyone has the same path. But for women, and for Black women, and for Black women who are carers, and for Black women who have disability, the hurdles are frequent and they're constant, and they require creativity, they require resilience, and they require a vision, and they require a network of people like, for instance, the people that are on this call, to be able to say, you know what, it's been a rubbish week. Yeah, it has been a rubbish week. I appreciate that from your perspective, but next week is a new week. And it very much sometimes is about breaking it down to your long-term vision with your short-term day-to-day goals, with your family, with your carers, with your own health and well-being. And I think that's really important. The other thing is that in Scotland, I mean, we have a unique set of opportunities in Scotland, and Auntie Makami made some reference to just what the local, context or the national context within Scotland is. We have a really big drive towards increasing representation and balancing out gender representation on civic boards and public boards. We have a race equality framework here in Scotland, which is unique to any other part of the United Kingdom. And it's really important that we jump in behind those policy directives and make them something that is local and practical. Now, legislation and policy is all well and good, but for people like myself, Auntie Mary, Auntie Makami, and for Amanda, it's about how that looks like in a local context. What are the opportunities? Where can you draw down resourcing? Where can you bring, young people together and create networks that have a vision? And I think that what the election result in the US has given us is given us a global picture of what's happening. I appreciate what Amanda said about the difference between the US and China. Too often we talk about economics. I think too often we talk about money, but sometimes we have to talk about the social benefit as well. And as women, and as women, Black women as well, importantly, we have a really key role to play. And it doesn't have to be very resource intensive. It's just about what our experiences are and bringing that global picture, which all of our kids, you know, they're all over all that global stuff much more than we are, yeah? But then bringing it into a local context. What's happening down the road at your local community centre? You know, why at school are the boys allowed to play football on their free Friday afternoon, and then the girls are asked to bring makeup in to do makeup? You know, my daughter came back to me one day from school and said that she doesn't wear makeup. She's the last person in the... So, you know, those stereotypes go right across the board, and it is about constant education. I don't see a massive change happening in my lifetime. I've been very privileged to work in the voluntary sector and the private sector, and to have my own business as well. I've been very privileged. It has been hard work, but it is. My parents instilled in me a work ethic, you know, and that might be a Calvinist thing, you know, that might be like a bit of a Christian thing, possibly, but it does get you with a vision, and it creates an energy that the kids that we are around pick up on, and the networks that we're around can share with each other. So I would just lastly say, you cannot be who you cannot see. And, you know, while I've spent all of my time in this new role with Engage Renfrewshire in this kitchen, I've not even, the last time I was in Renfrewshire was at Greg's with you, and then my interview a couple of weeks after. You know, but there's something about visualizing how important it is to just take, you know, stock of where we are now. Where we are now is very different to where we were 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and it will be different to where we're going forward in 30 and 40 years. But we have to just keep repeating the same messages and really celebrate the success of what has happened in the US, because that's a really defining moment for a country that, for, you know, the principal economic powerhouse of the world. It's a really important sort of development. And to echo Auntie Mukami's words, she's got her work cut out. You know, Miss Harris has got her work cut out, but I think she's up to the job.
Bokemi, I hear you there. You cannot be what you cannot see. Mary, yeah, you cannot be what you cannot see. You agree with? Are you on mute? Okay, you just unmute yourself. Yeah. You cannot be what you cannot see. I think that's true of what they reflecting on this discussion.
Yes, exactly. I do agree with Gozi. And also, I'm an activist. And some of the conferences I've met Gozi, and I do believe that. Just this week, either this week or at the end of last week, I was watching the news, and on Scottish news, I saw a Black girl talking about being bullied at school racially, and she was the one who was subjected to discipline. I was sad about that. And as a teacher for 22 years, I know exactly what goes on in Scotland. For me, when I even dreamt of becoming a teacher, I was told somebody who was born in Ghana, West Africa, I did not have a chance to become a teacher, stand in a classroom to teach. But you know what? I defied that and went for it. At the end of the day, I'm not sitting here saying it was easy. It has been tremendously difficult. But what I had in me was, and so, is self-belief that I am as good as anyone. It doesn't matter if they are not giving me the promotion. It doesn't matter if they are not giving me a permanent school to work in or to work at. At the end of the day, I became a successful teacher through my own commitment and determination to succeed. So this is what I want young people like me to believe, that regardless of the setback, if you are determined, you can be what you want to become. First, I believe that everybody, you have to know who you are, right? It's very, very important. You have to know who you are and what your capabilities are. At the end of the day, also, people suffer. You don't have to suffer in silence. You have to talk to others. And you will get help. Always there is help available.
So that's a network thing that goes here. Just talk there. I'm conscious of time now, a bit, Mary. Sorry, I have to push it there. But let me just go, Mary. Just while you're talking now, you've linked your submission with some of the things that you're doing. You're a teacher, so you just written a book about For the Love of Teaching, a title For the Love of Teaching. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Right. For my book, it gives account on my quest for my strive of fighting racism in education, and also working hard to make sure that there is some kind of diversity in education, because when I started, I did not see many Black teachers. It was difficult, like my big sister Mukami mentioned. During my teacher training, another colleague, a teacher, asked me, I was at a photocopier room, and she asked me what I was doing there. She didn't know that they have got an admin staff. And when I said to her, no, I'm a student teacher, I'm photocopying resources for my pupils, she just turned and walked away. So at the end of the day, for being a Black person, it's difficult. I look at it as a full-time job. But when your heart is in what you're doing and I love teaching. Because of that, I became successful. I became an activist, and I have paved way. I have worked hard to affect policy changes. But for me, the downside is surveys after surveys and your hard work after hard work, then it's shelved. That is the downside. For me, if we can affect policy in any sort, we have to, like you said, Gozi, network in the Black community. We have to come together and work hard to become powerful, and then move in a direction that we can make sure that solutions are found to affect the discrimination structures we have.
Yeah. So, Mary, so when you were talking about your challenges there, you talk racism in education. Were you meaning here in Scotland? Yeah.
Yes, here in Scotland.
Okay,
here
absolutely.
And also, here in Scotland, during my teaching time, I heard a lot about we don't have racism in our school.
Yeah.
For me, I found it difficult to. The people should ask themselves, how many Black children do they have in their schools? How many Black ethnic minority staff do they have? And even the head teachers themselves, have they have contact with any Black community group to encourage them, for example, children reporting any incidents? Because if they say that it doesn't matter if your school is mainly white population, you have to create the awareness. Every child needs that. Because for me, my experience, the children, they don't understand systemic racism. We have to teach them. We have to educate them. We have to tell them what it is. We have to make sure that they understand that certain words are harmful to others. They have to understand that. So it's been, for me, I try my hardest to make sure that I have done what it takes to educate the children that I taught. But then one person cannot do it all.
Yes, and thank you so much, Emery, for that. You know, so we get a drift, context to your book. Can you remind us, when is this book launch again? I know I mentioned at the top there.
The book launch is on 21st of November. So it's about just over a week away.
Yeah, a week from Saturday. A week on Saturday. Okay, that's fine. So last question. Again, we've got 2 minutes. So let me just ask this to everyone. You know, do you think the choice of having Kamala Harris on the vice president ticket might have galvanized the black vote in America, that they voted overwhelmingly this time around, that Joe Biden is winning the popular vote? Let me start with you, Bokami.
I think that's something for statistics, but I think there has been, from what I have spoken to my friends, is the massive mobilization of the black vote. Even people, not just about Kamala, but because people just got so fed up of being kicked about. And I think that when I'm talking about the energy, remember George Floyd and before that, many others. So there was that already feeling of, not just among the black and the African Americans and Latinos and others, there was a feeling of massive sense of injustice. And I think people of all colors wanted to fight against that. But yes, the Kamala factor cannot be underestimated. People were encouraged to see that is a move towards the right direction. You know, that was an indicator for people, yes, our vote will not be wasted. And I think that is what encouraged many people to go and vote. But there was a lot of feeling against the way people are being treated.
Hello.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm on. Yeah, I thought I was on mute.
Yes.
Am I on?
Yes, you're on. Yes, it's you.
Okay, do you want me to answer the same question?
The same question, yes.
Okay, just very quickly. Okay, firstly, I am a massive Steve Kornacki fan, and I have followed the statistics. And actually, that's not what they tell us. Trump, horrifically and astonishingly, had actually increased his proportion vote among some elements of the community, including parts of the black community that you wouldn't fathom, even the Latino community, and you think about how he has spoken about them. And it goes back to the point I made right at the very beginning, which is that huge credit has to be given to Joe Biden, because you know, the way that the system works in America, the vice presidential position is chosen by the running mate, is chosen by him, who will end up being the vice president. He did not have to choose a woman. He did not have to choose a black person. And I think the vast majority of people in America, particularly Democrats, had already decided they would vote against Trump. Even the purists who turned their noses up at Hillary last time, we know that from the statistics. And overall, the vote was up on both sides, don't forget. There was a historically high turnout. So I think what we have in Kamala Harris and everything that she represents, in everything that Stacey Abrams represents, in everything that all the black people already lined up for this administration represent, is all about the future. And please God, that the next 70 days are not too horrendous, and that we finally have this hideous man cleared out, and that the future can be carried by the decent people and by this amazing, talented, intelligent, gifted woman.
Yeah. Thank you, Gozie. Let's conclude with you.
Yeah, okay, so a couple of points. I mean, I think that there are a couple of really, really key issues, and Amanda alluded to at least one of them. In terms of the turnout, I mean, I'm not au fait completely with the electoral process in the US, but I tried to sort of grasp the kind of key points. The fact is that people came out in numbers, and people postal voted in numbers. And what Trump did was to tell his supporters to come out in person or to vote as close to the election date as possible, so that he almost created this, sort of myth, which he's now perpetuating through his legal challenges around what he saw as potential fraud through the voting system. Now, the majority of the Democratic votes that led to the high surge and indeed the win of Biden and Harris came as a result, I would say, from that early voting that sort of kicked in. And also what that says to me is that, and this is maybe like a very generic lesson that can be taken across the world, full stop, is that if you don't vote, if you don't vote, voting and where you spend your money, those are the two things that you control within your life, whether you're a black man, black woman, disabled, whatever. Those are the aspects that you have as your entitlement within the developed world. So you have to be able to express that. It might not always come out to the result that you're looking for, but unless it's like the national lottery, if you're not in it, you can't win it, is what they say.
Yeah.
And then the very last point, which I think is really, really important, and it relates to this election and also to the Black Lives Matters movement. I think that the reason that the Black Lives Matters movement has gone properly global is not because of any major sea change shifts in the principles of the movement. I think it's because Black people have become able to attract allies. They've been able to attract allies and people from around different sectors, from different networks, to say what we have been saying since the day that we were born. And now, when you have people like that in positions of influence and power, and they have the access to other ears and other reflections, then I think what you see is an opportunity to actually open up that debate in a much more comfortable environment. It shouldn't just be the Black people talking about Black Lives Matters. It shouldn't just be us. It should be everybody, because equality is about raising everybody's game and not just for Black people. So that's what I would say with regards to lessons learned and global versus local.
Chigozie Joe Adikwe, always nice to speak to you. A New Bodies Network Officer at Engage Renfrewshire and STUC Black Worker Committee member, and Miss Mokami Macrom, MBE, retired civil servant for Scottish Government Equality Unit. Amanda Baker, author, poet, and current affairs commentator. Mary Ose Opong, author for The Love of Teaching. Your book is getting launched on Saturday, so I'm going to be attending that definitely. But get to read that as well. So, but thank you so much, ladies. I feel a bit, to be honest, intimidated by this wonderful.
Can I say something, please?
I feel mothered.
My book is for everybody. It's for everybody to read and understand. For example, racism, how we suffer, Black people suffer, so that our colleagues can also support us. They understand the harm it causes.
Mary, I've got my book, but I've already bought the book, but you'll have to wait for me until I come back to Scotland.
It's the one I have to sign for you, so I'll keep it safe.
On the World Wide Web, on your mobile phone, and on all social media platforms. Jambo Radio.